Hello, everyone, and welcome to Launch Class. Glad to see all of you today. How are you doing? Everybody's doing good? All
Good.
right. All right. Well, I'm Kim Anderson, Director of Education, and I am here with Stephanie Mead. She is one of our amazing broker support team, and she supports the Florida market. So if you ever have any Florida questions, Stephanie is your girl. Go ahead and greet the agent, Stephanie.
Hi, everybody. How's the weather up there? Are you guys, it's
Oh,
good?
nice.
Yeah.
80 and sunny.
Oh, nice. Yeah. We're still way too hot, but
Are ya?
hopefully it won't be too much longer.
Yeah, and then we'll all be coming your way.
Yeah, that's right. Come on.
We'll be coming to visit. All right, so today we are going to talk about the seller to close process. So if you have your pens and paper, you want to make some notes. We also have checklists that are in our dot loop education tab, and there are checklists there for you as well. And they're a really great resource. Has anybody worked with the seller yet? Just thumbs up. Yep, Ray has. Okay. Kate, not yet. And Ginger. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen and Stephanie and I are going to walk through this with you. You are welcome to ask questions during the process. We'll give you an overview. And so let me pull this up here and share my screen, and then we will get started. So let's see. Am I on the right one? I think so. Let's see. You see it? Is it big enough?
Yep.
All right. I'm going to start though with this one. Is that big enough for you all to see?
Yep.
All right. So this is a seller to close checklist that I actually created 20 plus years ago, 25 years ago. When I had my first transaction, it was right after I got my license. I was working for a broker with a broker that we were required to team up with a seasoned agent. And so I teamed up with an agent who helped me, and it was amazing to get me through my first buyer. This is a seller checklist, but I made both buyer and seller. And then I've just revamped them to be a guide list, a checklist for you along the way. And so in that transaction, I gave up 50% of my fee to have an agent, which was absolutely worth every dime I paid them. But I never wanted to do that again. So I made these checklists. And I learned so much. I absolutely recommend you work with somebody if you want some hands-on direct, somebody right in your transaction with you. It's not required, but it absolutely is a plus. And so what I have here is we're going to start first of all. This is just a information sheet. You want to have somewhere now. A lot of this now, 25 years later, is electronically. We have home base. I use Folio. We have dot loop. There's a whole bunch of different ways that you can make your checklist. Stephanie, how do you keep track of your sales? Do you have a transaction coordinator? Do you have a checklist? It's all in your head. What do you use?
So I have a partner, Isabel, and she and I keep track just basically by writing everything down. I'm old school, so I write
Okay.
everything down. And it's basically like this.
Okay.
And it's important because you have your escrow deposits, that are due within 3 days, and you have, make sure that those get in and contracts get to the title company and all of that. So it's so important, and the timelines are so important. So this is what you have here, Kim, is perfect.
Okay, good. And then I've turned this into electronic, and I use a program called Folio, and it tracks it, puts it onto my calendar, reminds me. I share it with my client. It's a pretty hassle-free, easy program that I use. So the information you want, if I'm getting ready, you call me up and say, Kim, I'd like to have you come look at listing my property for me. First thing you want to do, some agents have this checklist right inside, used to be the old folder, keep it in a folder, and they would write on it. And some agents still do that. So whatever works best for you, as long as you can track it, it's really what's really important. So we want information here. We want the seller's name. If there's one or two sellers, what's the property address? What are their emails? Eventually, we'll get to a list price. Um, And eventually, once you put in, you have an MLS and expiration date. Like I said, a lot of this just comes up in your MLS electronically now. So this is just for information purposes. What do you need to know when you list a home? Who are you going to use for seller? Title company. I personally use Star Title. That's an affiliate of Five Star, and they do an excellent job. And so I will order a pre-listing packet from them, and I'll pull pre-title work. What we do there is we want to know who has the authority to sign, who owns the home, who's on the deed. So we want to get that title work going. We also want to know if there's some things that might alarm us later. If there's anything on there, maybe a bankruptcy or some liens, or one thing that gets missed a lot are like home equity loans. Even though they might be zero, they still have to be paid off. So there's a lot that we can look at in title work in a different session.
Right. Permits, open permits that need to be closed, things like
Okay.
that.
Yep.
Yeah,
Open permits, assessments. Those will come
exactly.
up. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, the first thing I usually do is pull the tax records on the
Yep.
property. And that gives you, kind of a footprint of what's going on, at least who is, the deed, the name the deed is in. And I don't know how Michigan is, but in Florida, most of our property appraiser offices, it'll show you open permits and
Yep.
liens on the house. So I
Yep. You
think,
really want to take a
right,
look at that.
I pull that and look at that first thing.
Okay. Perfect. So then I'm going to pop over to this outline. So, um, pre-listing preparation. You're going to get all this information together. We just talked about this. Review the ownership and the legal status. Is it a trust, an estate, a divorce, a death, multiple owners? Those are things that you're going to want to know when you go to that property. And if you don't already know, you want to make sure you ask those questions. You're already going to have done your market analysis and your pricing strategy, and we talk about that in another class. We also do an estimated net sheet that gives them an idea of what the costs are to sell their home. And in that appointment, we're going to talk about the listing process, the showing process, inspections, your marketing, and those are all, we have all of those talked about in classes in other launch sessions. So, but as Stephanie said, you want to gather all the property details, all the upgrades, all the disclosures. So,
Right.
yeah.
And when you have that appointment, that listing appointment, you're going to want to walk through the house and with a notebook and pen and paper, or, if you want to do it on your phone, that's fine too. But just make sure that you're writing down because they're going to start spewing information. So you want
Mhm.
to write down, when the water heater was replaced, when the AC, the roof, all of those things, this upgrade that they did, that, they replaced the, carpet and such and such. So I just start writing and let them go and start writing.
Yep, and just start taking notes. So this section here is over here. So what we're going to do, and so this does have a spot for when it goes pending, and this is just so that you can see it all at a glance. What's the pending date? Once it goes pending, the price, the buyer's agent, the earnest money, and we're going to talk about this as we go along, and then who's the lender. So seller information, once it goes pending, who's the lender? Also, a lot of this is already on your new deal summary in Dotloop. I created these before we had that electronic system. But once again, it's a teaching tool to show you this is all the information that you need to keep track of. So what we're going to do first is we're going to go into Dotloop. If you don't know Dotloop, we have some really good training videos over in our education department on home base. And make sure you understand Dotloop because it's going to be one of the tools that when it's time to write an offer, you don't want to be trying to figure out how to use a new tool. It'll be a lot on your plate. So when you have some time, go make a dummy loop on dot loop, make a buyer, make a seller, practice all of that, fill in forms so that when it's time to go make a loop, you are completely ready to go. So first thing you're going to do is go in, you're going to create your loop. You're going to put in all of your, this is seller's information, who's going to be signing. Then you're going to order this pre-listing title packet that we just talked about, and you're going to prepare your packet, your marketing plan. And so and also the market analysis and the net sheet. Those are things that we've talked about in other classes, but this is a checklist for you that you're going to work through. Okay. Then you're going to set your appointment. And one of the things, as we've discussed, is you're going to ask them once you get there, what are the upgrades? What have you done? Is there a new roof, a new furnace, the age of your water heater? Do you have any maps, any surveys, any information, warranties? Gather everything you can that's pertinent to that house that you might need in order to describe and sell the property. And then if it's a condominium, there's an information sheet and you want to make sure you get that filled out. Once again, this is just a checklist of the things. But if you have questions about any of these, I'll let Stephanie add to some things that she does. And if you have any questions about this, we'll go ahead and take some questions right now. Stephanie, do you have anything else that you?
No, just, again, I went on one the other day and that's why it's popping in my head. A mobile home in a park, but they own the land. And they brought out the deed restrictions, that they had tucked
Yep.
away. And those are important too, to make sure the buyer knows, what the
Yes.
restrictions are going to be in that.
Yep. So, whether it's a HOA condominium, that's
Right,
where you want to gather all this information so that you have it ahead of time. When I list a condo, I get the information sheet filled out. I ask for all of those records ahead of time. I either drop them into my MLS or I put them in a folder so that the minute you show the property and you have interest, I can get that all over to you. But I want to be prepared. So this
right.
is all when you take a listing, you do a lot of the work up front. And then you wait for buyers to come and see it, and then you negotiate and work through your process. Where when you have a buyer, you go show the buyer, then you working on the loan, writing the offer, all of those things. So listings are pretty front loaded, and then you manage, negotiate, and walk through the process. So these are some of the things that you're going to want to gather when you list a property.
And
Anything
then
that you can think of.
Isabel and I have created a pamphlet, really, a little small book actually, and it's kind of a guide, start to finish, for the sellers and what they need to do to prepare the house, just even, cleaning off the countertops and opening the blinds and things like that that they may not think about. So in that packet, it has that, it has the net sheet, it has the comps, it has, all of the start to finish and what's going to be expected of them
Yep.
once the house hits the market.
Yep. And that's a list that we do talk more in depth in our listing presentation. And we do have the 5-star making your move books that are really, really nice. And
Hmm.
there's things like getting your home photo ready, curb appeal, all of those things. So once you get all of this pre-listing dot loop, you go to your appointment. Now you come back, you've filled out all the paperwork, and now you're getting ready to list the property. So what next would be your steps? So first, you're going to make sure that you have all your documents in dot loop and they're all executed. Archive any documents that are not active or pertinent, that maybe something that just an extra form or something that's not signed that you don't need. Just get rid of all of those. A lot of that happens typically later once we start doing pending offers. You're going to stage it. If you're going to stage the home, then this is the time that you're going to want to do that. And so stage, yeah, go ahead. Oh, did someone say something? And then you're going to order a photographer to come out. Always use professional photos. Always, always, always. The photos are your first buyer appointment. Those are the photos that get syndicated out to every website. It is the first place that the buyer is going to see it, typically is going to be online. So you absolutely want to have professional photos. It is your first showing appointment and you want it to be pristine. The other thing is when you take a listing live, I would never recommend only having a front picture and then adding pictures later. Because what happens is when you take that listing live, it's going to syndicate right away out to all the buyer portals. It's going to syndicate onto all the websites, Zillow, Realtor.com, Homes.com, everything, all the broker websites. And if it goes into a portal and there's just one picture, typically a buyer's not going to come back to that. So when I go live, I want them to have everything that I want them to see about that property. Okay. And then you're going to enter it into the MLS. You're going to upload your seller disclosures, your lead-based paint. When you upload your photos, you want to make sure that you put them in a tour order or a way that captures the buyer so that they'll want to continue looking at the rest of the photos. I learned something the other day. I typically will put two or three like photos of the property, but then I stuck it into AI and asked AI, what is the best way to sort these photos? And it actually recommended that I do these first nine so that the buyer sees the property and creates interest. And then it had me come back and add some of the second shots and third shots. That was new to me. I'm getting showings, but you do what you think is going to draw buyers in. And then you can run what's actually called a reverse prospecting in at least in Flex in the MLS, and it will tell you if there's any matches, and then you can send that agent a note saying, "Hey, I just listed a property. Looks like this might be a good match for your client." And then install your key box, set up showing time, install your yard sign. So once again, we're just going over a highlight of the process. Looks like I saw somebody had a chat. Can you see that, Stephanie?
I cannot see that.
Okay, let me stop sharing to see if I can see it. Okay, I have to
I think it
stop for
was
a second.
Jim.
Oh, it's Jim. Welcome, Jim. All right, so let me go back to sharing here. All right. So, whoops, how do I get rid of that? All right, any thoughts, any questions on um the list for getting your home ready to go on the market? All right. Keep your questions if you have any. We can, once we get through the list, we can come back and go more in depth in some of these. So just, please raise your hand. We're happy to help. All right, Stephanie, let's talk about marketing. Once we get
So,
that home listed, what's next?
right. So that's going to be the key. You're going to want to get it out there and let people see that it's out there. I think that we've seen a lot of social media success.
Mhm,
So putting it in on social media and Facebook has a way to do like a mass send out. So you can send it out. You can also do that through MLS.
mhm,
And any kind of open houses, usually your open houses, you want to schedule that first weekend if you can and advertise those too. Lots
mhm,
of signs out for those.
mhm,
But that's, anything you can do that will generate that interest in
mhm,
a neighborhood. If it's in a neighborhood, do a little, evening neighborhood party where you open it from 4 to 6, tell them the house is open. If they have anybody that they want to bring through, that's, usually pretty helpful too.
mhm. Yeah. So when you prepare your marketing plan for your seller, you're going to want to show them all the things that you're going to do to expose their home and bring a buyer. So I have learned social media is easier than it used to be. So now with I ran some ads. I have a property in Berrien Springs that I want to draw a Chicago buyer. And so going into Ad Manager and creating one just was really hard to figure out. So I now have spent time with ChatGPT and it literally walks me through step by step
Mhm.
because I would go through it on my own and then I'd get it rejected. I always had this housing rejected, although I didn't have anything in there that was for housing, but some button wasn't right. And so I have found my insights on my Chicago ad right now are amazing, reaching thousands and thousands. I mean, it goes out to like 7 million, but I can see the insights of who's looking at it every time they click on my MLS link because I make the ad with AI and then I put the link there and every time they hit that landing page. So that's a really good report that you could show your seller that you are out marketing. Now that's paid. You have to pay for those and you get to set your budget. So I ran one for a week with a certain budget to see how it does. And the bottom line is you want to expose that home to as many buyers as possible and get them through the door. So social media, as Stephanie said, old school, send postcards, just listed, open house. I know we do a lot more virtually now. But whatever works for you, I do still recommend that you send a postcard to the neighborhood. It's a good way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like Stephanie said, bring them into the open house. Say, hello, neighbor. We'd love to see you from 5 to 6. We've got some hors d'oeuvres, whatever you want to say. And you want them to be able to pick their own neighbor.
Hmm.
And if they don't want to pick their neighbor and they don't have anyone in mind, maybe they want to sell. So marketing is really, really important for your seller and also for yourself to build your business. It's a really great way to get business.
Right. And that's a good point, Kim, too, is that, not only are they being able to see the house, but they're also looking at you and how hard you're working for that seller to get it sold, and they'll remember that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So be creative. The one thing that I'm seeing with AI that I don't love is that I can tell right away AI made it. It's super easy to see they're the same. So what I said to AI the last couple of times is, I want it in this style, this look. Um, you have to tell it because otherwise you can see all the buttons are the same lettering. So I've been more specific on saying I want it to be, modern. I want it to be this color. I want it to look Italian. I want it to look like my brand, whatever it is. And I think you can get past that automatic look for marketing. You do want to stand out. And everything I see now, someone's just popping AI. Why not? It's so easy.
Mhm.
If you can't do all that, then just at least do something. But you have to give it a little bit more information and it will bring out something that doesn't look like it was so populated, by AI. But you have to really tell it. I'm going to look here and see. Um, you have to really tell it what you want because it will keep saying the same thing over and over. And you recognize the buttons. I'll show you. Like you can see, let me go to my Facebook. Am I still sharing this page? You can see it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me go to myself. So one thing that you'll recognize are these buttons right here. So this one I did tell it and I was happy with it. So, but they see how they do these same buttons down here. Can you see that? The address, all this. But I did tell it to give it a certain look, certain colors. But now if I go over here, I saw this one today and I just think you want to stand out, but if that's all you do, it's okay. But I am seeing there's a pattern of being able to see that right here. You can see this is your basic AI ad. Super easy to recognize. There's nothing wrong with it, but you can bring that in. They label things a certain way. So that's up to you. If that's all you got, it's an awesome ad. They'll make it for you. I have some Chicago ads that are fantastic that are running or a reel or a story. So just, do your best to make it all your own. So be creative and also I send my sellers a copy of my flyers. They're in the home. I do put flyers in the home. I make really nice packets, a professional flyer, any updates, any surveys, any maps. I upload those into the MLS as well. And I leave a packet at the home so that when they get to the home, if they want to take that with them, they have the information. So I know a lot of agents don't do packets anymore, but I absolutely do. I feel like that's one of the things that's really important to show my seller the work that I'm doing for them.
I
Any,
agree. I think that is very important, and I think people look for it. So
yep, yep,
that's
yep,
it's a great way to do. And you don't only have to do print or photos. You can do videos. You can stand in
yes,
front of the house and say, "Hey," and put that on social media anywhere you want. It's anything that will grab somebody's attention to look at what you've got.
yep, and keep looking. And I can see on some of my Chicago ads, some that are liking it, and they
Mhm.
are from the Chicago area. And I can see who's liking it, who's looking, because
Great.
that is the buyer for the home. You have to look at the home and say, who's my buyer? Who do
Right.
I want to target? Is this home somebody? And you have to be, you can't do any fair housing when you put the ad out there, absolutely not. But if it's right next to a school, your buyer is probably a family with small children. Not always, though. Could be a retiree, could be single. But you want to kind of think who is your buyer and what's going to appeal to them. And if it's the school, then you really want to promote the school or the area or whatever it is. If it's waterfront, if it's a vacation home, if it's a condo. So just be sure that we're not discriminating in any way. So, all right, so we've listed the home. Any questions so far? All right. If you do, I can't see the chat without stop sharing. So just go ahead and raise your hand and ask the question. All right. So now we've marketed the home. We've got an offer. We have negotiated it. It's all pending now. And now what's the next things that we need to do? So you're gonna you're going to clean up your pending loop. It already comes up pending, I know now in dot loop, but you want to make sure that you fill out the new deal summary. You make sure all your forms are executed, all the signatures are there, that that is complete, and then archive any documents that aren't pertinent anymore for whatever reason. And then you'll want to submit that for a review. For a review, there's a button up in the top right. The only way the branch administrators know that you have a pending transaction is if you hit submit for review. Once you do that, that alerts them that, hey, Ray's got a new deal here. It went pending. We should review his loop. So what they're going to do, they don't review for content. They review for signatures and forms that we need because they're not licensed agents. But they'll make sure you've got your new deal summary, your purchase agreement, your real estate agency disclosure, your lead-based paint, your seller disclosure, your affiliated business, wire fraud reminder. They're going to make sure that the forms that we tell them that you should have are there and they're all executed. If they're not, they're going to go, hey, Ray, congratulations on your pending. I just need you to sign the lead-based paint. And so they'll make a note missing the signature. So the reason you want to do this is you want to be compliant. But secondly, once that transaction closes, you want to make sure that they have everything that they need for you so that on closing day, and you submit your closing documents in your check, that they can process that and you can get paid right away. So you really want to keep up on those so that the last minute we're not chasing a buyer agency contract or chasing a signature. Okay. So once you review it for dot loop, they're going to be looking for all the forms. They're going to be looking for what you want to do when you receive an offer is make sure you get a copy of a pre-approval or a proof of funds, something to show that the buyer can purchase the home. Even though you're on the seller side, you now aren't getting those documents, but you're making sure you're not collecting the earnest money, but you want to be sure that it's being collected. So I have timelines, and I'll show you that here in a little bit, how I track things. Um, Also, when you receive an offer, you would have done like a summary of the offer. You would have explained it to your seller before they signed it. And I always prepare an updated net sheet for them. I always say in caps, this is an estimate because prorations can change, but it should be very close at closing. But I always remind them this is just an estimate. And then you'll want to change it in your MLS, whichever one that is, change that to pending or active contingent, active backup, whichever your board has you do. And then you'll click the box on the new deal summary. Please order title work from Star Title. You could put out a pending sign now. I tend to wait till after inspections. I don't want to put one out and then have to take it back in. If you're asked to order a survey, typically we ask the buyer to do that, but depends what you negotiated. And and then one thing on your new deal summary, say you sold the house for 400, but after inspections you negotiated $2,000, so now it's 398. Make sure you change your new deal summary. That is the overview that the title company is going to use when they create your documents for closing. And any receipts, I have one going right now. We have put in Radon. I've uploaded the paid receipt, any warranty that goes with it. We've also treated for carpenter ants. I've uploaded that with the paid receipt, and then I've shared both of those with the buyer's agent so that they can share with their client. So anything that goes along with that file, you want to put it there. It's like your file drawer. And when they can't find it a year later and say, Kim, do you have that warranty from the radon system? It's right there. Stephanie, what do you have to add?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that it's important. I think the more documentation you can have and put in there and keep in dot loop, the better off you are. And, even when it comes back, because typically, we get those sales back as another listing, or if you're working with a buyer, or, if they go to sell it and need something. So I think it's important to keep all of that together.
Yeah, I've had clients sitting at their with their tax person the next year
Hmm.
and they need something. They need their closing statement, their settlement statement, and they'll call me and say, "Hey Kim, do you have that?" And I can send it to them right then and there. So it's really important to keep your dot loop labeled. If you need to call broker support and I go in there and you'll say, "Well, there's an addendum in there," and I see addendum, 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 addendum. I don't know which one I'm helping you with. So I'll do sales price change or 304K or repair a repair ask, repair executed repair, something so that you can identify what those addendums are if you need help. And also it helps the title company not to miss some change while they're making your settlement statement up too. So the more clear you can be in there, it just helps our whole team. It helps everyone. It's just part of that smooth closing process.
Exactly.
All right. Any questions? Any other thoughts, Stephanie? Any thoughts, anybody? All right. Seems easy, right? Not
It's
yet?
easy when you're organized.
Yes. Yep. And just remember, at any point, there could be a problem that shows up. There's buyers change their minds, sellers change their minds. So the more organized you are here, the better it's going to be so that your time and energy is freed up to take care of the negotiations and take care of the problems that arise and be a problem solver and be able to solve anything that might come along and be able to address it.
Right.
Stephanie, I'll let you take inspections.
All right. That's always a fun one. So, we recommend every single sale has an inspection,
Mhm.
and you can give them the name of three if they're looking for somebody, but typically if you're on the list side, the buyer's going to have that already taken care of. So you want to have that home inspection, make sure, and it's not on you to make sure it's done in that specific time, but I always, if I have not heard from an agent, that's buying a listing of mine, I'll, touch base and say, have you scheduled the home inspection? Um, so that's, getting that in in a timely manner that meets the contract, the terms of the contract, and making sure that you get any, if they're asking for repairs, and that all of that's done, because if not, it's going to be assumed one way or the other, either, that the seller's willing to do all of those, or if they haven't heard back. So you have to make sure you're documenting that and that you're staying in your timeline.
Mhm.
Um, the termites we have in Florida, I don't know if you guys do termite inspections.
Every
Okay.
time. Yep.
So,
Yep.
typically those are only good for 30 days. So you have to time those, within the closing time and make sure you're not doing them too far in advance. Make sure you can get those dates all to match.
Mhm.
We don't really do radon inspections. We don't have a lot of that down here, but I know
But
that's
in
a,
Michigan, yes,
yeah,
always. Yeah.
right. So
Yeah.
I don't know much about the radon, but I think the timelines are just the main thing to make sure everything's done within those, if it's
Right.
10 days or 15 days or whatever you have on the contract.
Yeah. So
Um,
yes, in Michigan we do. I always recommend pest radon. If they say no, that's okay. One thing to remember, if you're on the seller side, we're talking about the seller, but say you're on the buyer side and the buyer waives inspections, there we do have an inspection waiver that they understand that they're waiving those. Sometimes when you're in multiple offers and you want to win, the buyer will waive inspections, but then after it closes and they have a problem, and now they're saying, well, my agent didn't recommend I have one. You want to have that documentation that they agree that they understood fully what they were agreeing to. So,
right.
and you're going to have different inspections in Florida. I mean, this is for any and all, could be mold. Do you do mold
Hmm.
probably most of the time in Florida? Okay. And you're welcome to do, it's not limited. A couple things that you can't see typical in our area for inspections is you would pay extra if you have a sprinkler system. I always want to make sure that those are on. And I will bring out a sprinkling company at the buyer's expense to investigate that. You can, if it's not on, you want to see, either ask them to turn it on prior to inspections, or you want to see when it closed that it was in working order. I recommend paying to have that system. I did that recently for a home that was vacant, and my buyer paid to have that system turned on and to have it
Inspected.
inspected. Yep, inspected. And then you have to negotiate, are we going to turn it back off, which is very expensive to, or just leave it on, hopefully the deal comes through, and then my buyer, which they did, now have their system on. The other thing is the same with pools. You have a lot of pools in Florida.
Hmm.
So is that a separate inspection, or is that part of when
So
you call?
a pool inspection is going to be a separate inspection,
Uh-huh.
but our sprinkler systems are included in our home inspections.
Okay.
So,
So
but
every area has a different
right.
practice. Yeah, and so the other thing that you can't see would be a chimney inspection. Those typically are going to be an extra inspection, and you do want to have those, you do want to have that chimney checked out, and sewer scopes. In
Right.
our area, we have a lot of trees that get into those sewer systems, and so you want to remember to recommend that you get a sewer scope, because that can be a very, very expensive fix.
And it's not a bad idea when you're listing, if they have a pool or they have a chimney or a sprinkler system, have them go ahead and have it inspected. And they've
Yes,
got it
ahead of time.
ready.
Yep. And my seller did have their chimney inspected, and so we did disclose that on
Right,
our seller disclosure. So if they want to accept that, or they want to bring somebody
right.
else, inspections are limited, are not limited. They're unlimited. And when you take a listing agreement, the seller agrees to give accessibility to those inspections. Now, we try to do them all at the same time as much as possible as a courtesy to the seller. So do your best to court. Well, you're, once again, you're on the receiving side of this, but you still need to communicate with the buyer's agent, give access, and make sure that everything is flowing according to contract. And then the same if you have well and septic. Those are a separate line item on the Michigan contracts. They're not part, they're two different paragraphs, because the 10 days may be up for the home inspection before that well or septic inspection even comes back. So they're a different timeline. So as you can see, you have all these timelines going. You have a title insurance timeline to get that back and reviewed. You have inspection timelines. You may have a separate sewer timeline. So there's then at the same
Your
time,
mortgage
the
company
yes,
timeline to apply,
yeah,
yes.
you have a certain amount of time. So we're on the seller's end, but we want to check. We had a
Right.
call the other day where someone said, well, the an agent called for help and said they had, 3 days to apply, and we're at day 10, and the buyer has never even applied for the mortgage. What do I do? I'm the seller. So you want to just keep an idea. What I do as a buyer's agent, I will say, um, mortgage has been applied for. Or I will take those timelines, at least communicate through dot loop. EMD has been delivered. Here's a copy, or here's verification. I help that listing agent to know what's going on. So when I had these repairs done, because we're past into the repairs now, headed to closing, that's why I said we agreed we would do three things. Here's the receipts, they're completed. Here they are, you've got them. And so you just want to, you have a lot to coordinate. And then you have the repairs now from these inspections. So as you can see, you have a lot going on, and every one of them have a timeline, and you don't want to be the reason that your buyer gets caught and doesn't have something covered properly. Okay. Anything else, Stephanie?
Not under
Okay.
that I can think
Yeah.
of.
All right. How about title insurance?
So that's a big one because, you're going to get that from the title company. They're going to give you that report and you need to look and see, are there any outstanding taxes or assessments or utilities, or open permits. So it's definitely important to make sure you're on top of the title company and getting that information as soon as it comes out.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And we did a power session, so that's over in the library, educational library, where we brought in Betsy, from Star Title, and she explained what you should be doing. What you should not be doing is ignoring it.
Right.
That is the wrong answer. So you want to be ordering it, you want to be reviewing it, and you should be reviewing it with your buyer. Or
Mm.
well, you're once again, you're the seller. So you're sitting here looking, but maybe there are some things that come up. So say you have a seller, which I do right now. And so before I got to title work, I knew it would come up, but I needed a death certificate to one of the heirs because it was a ladybird deed. So you want to be looking, what do I need and how quickly can I get that off of me and onto somebody else?
I just had a closing recently where working for the seller and the title and came back and showed that they had had a new roof 2 years prior, and the roofer had never closed out the permit.
Okay.
So that takes time because if this roofer had gone out of business, and then you have to apply to the county to tell them that it went out and get them to close it. So that all took like a week. So, but we wouldn't, had I not looked at the title policy when it came through or the review, we wouldn't have known that. We wouldn't have contacted them and gotten that ball rolling. So it's important to make sure because you don't want anything to come through that's going to extend the closing date or
Mhm.
time.
Yeah, that's good advice. And this contract is 6, 7, 8 pages for a reason. There are things that need to be done every step of the way.
Right.
So really important. Long, long time ago, we bought a house, and the when it was prior to closing, all of a sudden I got a call. Title work had done some researching. Not remember how they found it, but they did. Probably when they were getting ready to close, and they looked for open permits. Somehow they figured out that the builder had fraud lien releases, and that was going to take a long time to clean up. And my house was sold. So you want to get in front of all these things
Hmm.
because we absolutely could not close on that house. It was not going to happen for a long time. And my house had a buyer already on it that was coming, a relocation coming in. And so we had about 10 days to find a new house. And this is where, as agents, you are problem solvers. You are in front of these things as much as you can because when a surprise comes, you want all your energy freed up to be able to solve that problem.
Hmm.
And I called my agent at the time, I wasn't licensed yet. I said, "You're going to be with me day and night. Let's go." And we found the house, we put under contract, we negotiated. It was a heavy negotiation, but because we were pre-approved, that builder allowed us to move into that home 10 days prior at a pretty hefty fee, but it helped us to not have to move twice. And there's always risk in moving into a home before you close. And so it all worked out. And I had a really good agent at the time. So all those things are important. You have buyers and sellers whose lives are so upside down in this move. And it's a lot more um, than sometimes they realize till they get in it. And so getting everybody from this house to that house and this move to that move, it's a miracle sometimes. I just think about how many times we do it every day. And then I watch my seller or my buyer struggle with making all this happen and all the stress. So our goal is to bring them to a smooth closing, to be the calm in the storm, to have all of these bases covered. We are on top of it. I've got it. And you're going to make this be the best experience that they've ever had. Very, very
Right.
important. All right. Any questions so far? All right. So now we are at pre-closing. We have got a clear to close from the buying agent, and they're saying we can close in 5 days. So now, what do we do here, Stephanie?
So now the first thing you really want to do is, of course, communicate that to your seller
Yeah.
and then get with the title company and get the closing statement so you can go ahead and start going over all the numbers with them. And if you haven't done that or you're not familiar with the closing statement, the settlement statement, get with the title company and they'll go over everything with you so you understand exactly what you're saying to that seller. Because
Mhm.
that, at the end of the day, is what it comes down to, right? What the bottom
Mhm.
line is. So, so you're going to do that, make sure any repairs are done, make sure that they leave out any warranties that they have on any of the appliances. And then they are in Florida, most of our closings, they are out the day of closing. So the house is to be swept clean, warranties left, garage door remotes, keys, everything on the counter. And we've already been over the closing statement. So when they actually sign, there's really no questions for them, for the seller at all. They should know exactly what they're signing and what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it's very typical and always recommended. I would never waive a final walkthrough.
Right.
If your contract doesn't have it, you should write it in because it could be weeks since your buyer has seen that home and you want your eyes on it before you go and sign off on a $300,000 mortgage. I've walked in on a final walkthrough and had the kitchen flooded. It was vacant. Nobody knew that the pipe had burst and the floor was soaked. And in that situation, we literally had that fixed before the end of the day and we closed. It was
Oh,
amazing because most of the water had sat on top of the linoleum. So there wasn't all this other damage.
oh,
And so some agents do it right on their way to closing. I like to do it the night
night
before.
before.
Yeah, I've actually had an agent call me years ago that they went to the walkthrough on their way to closing. And when the buyer got back to the house, few hours later, all the windows on the porch had fallen out and crashed on the porch. So it was an older home. I don't know if
Oh.
if they ever discovered what caused it. They didn't know if it was vandalism. They don't know if a wind came and those were loose and all of a sudden they all just fell out. I can't remember. I don't think I ever found out what that cause was, but you want to be in front of all these things prior before you go to that closing table. The other thing is make sure that if you're closing at the day of closing, that you get the utilities transferred. Make sure that you remove your lockbox, your sign, bring a key to closing, adjust, figure out how that's going to be, the keys are going to be transferred. Um, and just have all those details for them ready. Some agents have a service provider list that has all the numbers. I think now you can just go online so easily and just transfer things. But anything to make that closing day much, much smoother. The other thing that we want to remind you about just came to mind is once again, you're on the seller, but we're kind of crossing back and forth, buyer or seller, do not transfer any money that's a last minute change. Usually that would be the buyer. I don't even like to use wire transfers. I rather you just bring a cashier's check. There's so much fraud out there, but remind them, do not make any last minute urgent changes without calling you or the title company first, because that's a very real thing at closing day. Buyers are busy. They're trying to get to the closing, get the kids off to school, get the moving van going, get their check, get this, get that. And you want to make sure that that they don't make any bad decision in the midst of all that shuffle.
Do you know in Florida, the title companies that I've used for the last probably 2 years, they don't accept cashier checks anymore.
Really?
It's
They
only wire.
Ooh, I did not know that. No,
Hmm.
we accept them. Yeah. So good to know. So you want to make sure if you're in a Florida agent that you are having the title company and the buyer or the lender or whoever
Communicate.
communicate
Yeah.
directly
Hmm.
without being a middleman because with AI and fraud, it looks so real and seems real.
Right.
Their voices seem real. You think you're talking to the right person, and you just want to do everything you can to protect your buyer and your seller. All right. And then the last thing is after closing, what do? We've closed it out. If you are using Star Title, hopefully you are, they do excellent work. And in Florida, we don't have a Star Title. So I'll let Stephanie tell what they do there. But Star Title will take care of the paperwork, they will take care of the money. They upload it into your loop so you get a copy of it that when you leave the closing table, your buyer, your sellers all have copies. They will turn the check in over to accounting. If it's there before the cutoff time, which is 3 o'clock, that will all get processed. And if you have direct deposit the next morning, your check will be in your account. So if you are using a different title company, maybe it's cash, and so you have to go over to another company. You want to bring that packet back to your branch administrator, or if you don't have a branch administrator at your office, you want to get that to the main Standale office. That typically the title company will overnight it there. But you need to get that turned in, and then they will process that paperwork. Okay.
And
Stephanie, what do
that's
you do? How's your closings? They're at the table, correct?
so some of ours are at the table, and some the title companies will mail overnight the check to Michigan.
Mhm.
And but the ones, I mean, the way that I do it, we have now a CDA, so it's a commission disbursement authorization in .loop, a form, and that is filled out and it's sent to the title company, and the title company will cut our check right at the closing table and send 5 star their part.
Mhm. So try to make that as smooth as possible. You finally, after months and months of this transaction, we want to get you paid as quickly as possible. So, and then you'll want to turn in your lockbox. You'll want to add your client to whatever mailing list, home base, drip campaign. If the seller is moving to a new location, you want to scrub those addresses, make sure you have the most updated one. You could send a letter, ask for referrals. The close date now automatically goes to the public websites. We used to have to add it, but I've noticed a lot of them, they just grab it now. Client testimony, just sold, um, anything,
And making
any marketing
sure
you want to do.
you close it out in MLS.
Yes, close out in the MLS. Yep, that's true. Yep, you want to close it out there. So, what questions do you have for us? Easy peasy, right? Got it all covered? So
Not
that's a quick overview. Every one of those topics can go deeper and deeper, but we want you to have a checklist and at least know the things that are involved and then follow your purchase agreement because that is going to dictate the timelines and the way repairs are handled, the way that title work is handled. So very, very important to review and know your purchase agreement, listing agreement. Even though this is on the seller side, you're still following a purchase agreement. One thing that we see often is, so say Ray puts in a listing and he says, seller is reserving the washer and dryer. And so the buyer comes along, writes a purchase agreement, and they write in stove, refrigerator, microwave, dishwasher, washer, dryer. It is not automatic because Ray reserved it. What we're going to go by is what does the purchase agreement say? And because they wrote it in, your buyer now got your washer and dryer. The MLS is not enough. It's an offering. So make sure if you reserve something, I will say, even on that purchase agreement, if they don't put it in, I will make it clear, reserved, buyer to keep, blah, blah, blah. Uh, Buyer to have the extra freezer in the basement. Um, the three drapes in the three kids' bedrooms are to stay. Whatever that is, make sure that you line it out and count it out because that's where one of the biggest things that we get, playground equipment. And it's hot tubs, playground equipment. Our purchase agreement has tried to clarify that if it's not addressed, who gets it. But those are things that when you're writing and receiving purchase agreements, you want to really make sure that it all makes it to the purchase agreement.
Exactly.
All right. Any other thoughts you can think of, Stephanie?
Nothing that I can think of. I think that the form is very thorough and reminders are in there. So I think if you follow that or something similar to that, I think just being on top of it, staying organized and keeping those dates in mind are the most important things.
Yep, yep. And I can show you really quick. Let me share. Let me share here, and I'll show you what I use. I can close that. Let's see. This is what I use. Can you see this folio, my checklist?
Hmm?
So this is what I use. You can try it. It's called Amitree, Amitree folio. If you just Google that. Um, you can have two free just to try it. And so I actually have templates set up here. And when I take a listing, it drops the template right here. So we have listing date, submit, photo shoot, coming soon, cleaners are coming, stagers are coming. Go down here, when was the offer accepted? So this one fell through back here. So we kept going, offer accepted now, earnest monies received. And what it does is it puts those dates right on my calendar as well. And so I have a template, I drop it, and then I have to massage it a little bit. But what's really good is up here, I've shared this with my seller. So every time I make a change, EMD was received, they get an alert. Earnest money's been received. They can also see this timeline. You can put your service providers here. You can add documents. I'm not going to do all that because I have dot loop. So you can see on my transaction, we've moved along. And right now, my next step is that on August 25th, Tuesday at 10 to 11, this appliance company's coming with the buyer's agent to see about repairing the stove. And then, um, let's see, final walkthrough to estimated closing day. So this transaction is supposed to close by August 31st. What I'll do with that is once we get a clear to close, and you could add clear to close, the date. I don't put that on here because as soon as we get a clear to close, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to change this to say confirmed. And then we'll put the date and the time in here and the place and any notes. And then that'll go back in line. And then once we get that clear to close, remove the sign, unstage it, final walkthrough. Um, so actually 28th. So I'm going to move this so you can just go here and go 31st. So it'll move it back in line. So however you want to do it. So it's really simple if you want something that you want to do online, or you can pay for lots of other programs out there.
What was the name of that, Kim?
It's called Folio, Folio, but it's Amatree.com, Amitree. So typically, as long as I archive one, I can keep two going at the same time because that's usually all I have. If I start going over that, then I just go in, I pay for the year, and it gives me unlimited. But it
Okay.
depends how things are falling. Like if one's getting ready to close, I'll wait. And then
Hmm.
like I closed one and now I have two more. One in I have two in there right now, and then I'm gonna have a buyer, so I'll have a third one, so I may have to pay.
Okay.
It's not that expensive. I don't remember the amount. A couple $100. There's always some coupon or some,
Okay.
certificate or something you can apply.
I
I
like that it involves the seller and they get the updates too.
Yes. And I would try it if you're going to join. I think I can give you a code for $100 off.
Okay.
So I've been using that for years and years. It used to always be free, and of course they get you hooked in, and now they changed it to only two. Um, and so it's super easy for me. I do like that it gives updates automatically, and
Hmm.
my seller or
Saves you a
buyer,
step.
it
And
saves me a step. Even though
they
I'm still
get
communicating, they get those
exactly.
alerts and they're like, oh, so then once we go pending with my new buyer, I'm gonna put it in and he's gonna say, oh, earnest money's due by Tuesday. Oh, I have inspections until Saturday, the 28th, and it tells them what's up and coming, the title work's coming, and it also puts them on electronic, which is really nice too.
I
So,
love it.
yep. All right. Well, any questions about anything? Anything you have going on? Anything you want to ask Stephanie and I about this class or anything else? All right. Well, it was good to see you. Next week, let me look. I think next week is Paul. Let me see. Today. Yep. So next week, Paul Carlson is with us. And yep. And so Paul will be with us, and he talks about being a remarkable agent. So it's a chance to come in and talk with him and ask any questions. And then the next week after that, it's just going to be an open Ask Us Anything class. And then we'll take a break and we'll be back in October. So if you have any questions or anything, reach out to our broker support team. We're always happy to help you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Stephanie, for
Thanks,
being here
guys.
today.
Thanks,
All right,
Kim.
thank
All
you.
right,
Thank you.
everybody, have a good day. All right, see you
Bye-bye.
later. Bye.